Welcome, everyone. Today we are conducting a thorough analysis of a platform that didn't just, enter the media space. It fundamentally rebuilt it from the ground up.
It really did.
We're going to unpack the entire story of YouTube. It's a massive two-decade journey, and it's approaching its 20th anniversary in February of 2025.
And we've gathered a just incredible amount of source material detailing everything, the creation, the financial engine behind it, and the very complex social and political tightropes it has to walk every single day.
I think before we get into the story, we have to establish the scale. The numbers are just staggering. They almost define the entire problem space we're talking about.
Absolutely. It's essential. So, as of the beginning of 2024, YouTube is the second most visited website in the world.
And number one is?
Its parent company, Google.
Right. So that tells you right away, this isn't just another social network. It's fundamental digital infrastructure.
It is. And the reach. We're talking about over 2.7 billion monthly active users.
2.7 billion. Let that sink in.
That's nearly a third of the entire world's population engaging with this one platform every single month. And the consumption rate is, it's mind-boggling.
What are we talking about daily?
Collectively, those users watch well over 1 billion hours of videos daily.
1 billion hours a day.
It's like a collective lifetime of viewing every single day.
And the creation side is just as relentless. I mean, the sources confirmed that back in 2019, over 500 hours of new video content were being uploaded every minute.
Just think about the storage, the processing, the moderation that requires. It's an engineering problem on a scale that's hard to comprehend.
And the total number of videos now?
It's sitting at approximately 14.8 billion as of mid-2024.
So our goal today is to really get into this critical digital engine.
Yeah.
We need to track how it went from this small venture-funded startup, literally 3 people with an idea,
right,
to a multi-billion-dollar subsidiary of Alphabet. We'll be looking at the pivotal business shifts, the defining legal battles, and, of course, the huge political and social issues that have really shaped what it is today. Okay, let's unpack this phenomenal journey, starting right at the very beginning. Back in 2005, the groundwork for YouTube was really laid during that first .com success story, PayPal.
That's right. The 3 founders, Chad Hurley, Steve Chen, and Jawed Karim, they were all early employees there.
And they each had their roles, right?
Yep. Hurley was the design guy, while Chen and Karim handled the computer science side of things.
And crucially, they became wealthy pretty early on after eBay acquired PayPal.
That's a key ingredient here. They weren't scrambling for capital. They had the technical know-how and, just as importantly, the financial runway to actually explore new ideas. That's a luxury most startups just don't have.
But the origin story is, it's a bit confusing, almost mythological. There are 2 very different stories about why YouTube was even invented.
There are. You have the nice, digestible marketing story, the one that got famous, which was pushed primarily by Chen and Hurley.
And that story was?
That they had trouble sharing videos from a dinner party at Chen's apartment in San Francisco.
It's a perfect narrative, isn't it? A simple, relatable problem. A domestic inconvenience solved by some brilliant engineers.
It is. And Chen even admitted later that the story was likely, and I'm quoting here, very strengthened by marketing ideas around creating a story that was very digestible.
But co-founder Jawed Karim, who wasn't even at that dinner party.
Yeah.
He denied that story. He gave a much more interesting and, I think, culturally driven inspiration.
He did. He pointed to 2 specific major global events from 2004 that got him thinking.
The first was the Super Bowl halftime show controversy.
With Janet Jackson, right.
Aye.
And the second was the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami.
2 completely different kinds of events.
Exactly. And in both cases, Karim realized it was almost impossible to find video clips of these huge, defining global moments online. The infrastructure for distributing immediate user-captured events, it just didn't exist.
And that's the difference, right? It's the difference between a good idea sharing party videos and a genuinely transformative idea. It wasn't about sharing your personal life. It was about sharing the world.
100%. But before they landed on that vision, they almost went down a complete dead end.
What was that?
The sources confirmed the initial concept was actually a video dating service. It was heavily influenced by another early site called Hot or Not.
A dating service.
Yes. And to get content, they even went so far as to post on Craigslist. They were offering attractive women $100 to upload video clips of themselves.
Wait, hold on. So the platform that is now the backbone of global education, news, everything, a company worth tens of billions, started by offering people $100 on Craigslist for dating videos.
That's right. And that pivot, from a failed dating site to this universal content library, is maybe the most critical moment in their entire early history.
Why did the dating idea fail?
It just proved unviable. They couldn't get enough content, which, fortunately, forced them to accept any kind of video upload.
So it was a failure that led to success.
Precisely. That decision to just open the floodgates to all user-generated content, educational, political, just fun stuff, that is what defined YouTube's success.
And that new direction gave us the very first video, April 23, 2005.
Me at the Zoo, featuring Jawed Karim himself standing in front of the elephants at the San Diego Zoo.
And the site moved incredibly fast after that.
Oh, yeah. It was registered in February 2005, and it exited its beta phase in December of that same year. It was already getting 8 million views a day.
But the tech was so limited back then.
Very limited. Clips were restricted to 100 megabytes, which, often meant only about 30 seconds of footage.
The technology was the limiter, but the demand was the accelerator. The viral mechanism kicked in almost immediately.
It did. That Nike ad with the soccer star Ronaldinho was the first video to officially hit 1 million total views.
And this is where the tension starts, right? The tension between the platform and established media.
Exactly. YouTube was getting famous, and it was being propelled by these viral hits, like the Saturday Night Live skit Lazy Sunday in December 2005.
That was huge.
It got over 5 million views in just 2 months.
But it was completely unauthorized content.
And that's the point. NBC Universal, which owned SNL, quickly demanded its removal for copyright infringement. This wasn't just a minor hiccup. This was a foundational moment for the entire platform.
It established this conflict that YouTube has, frankly, never fully resolved.
You're right. It's the creator's desire for open, instant sharing, which is what gives the platform all its value, versus the entrenched rights and concerns of the big content owners, Hollywood, the music labels.
And even though they removed those original Lazy Sunday uploads, the duplicates just kept popping up.
And the popularity of it helped cement YouTube's place as a global destination.
And there's one last little amusing story from that founding era. The name itself caused a problem.
Oh, yes. The lawsuit. It was filed in 2006 by a company called Universal Tube and Rollform Equipment. Their website was youtube.com.
Ah, I see where this is going.
Because of the phonetic similarity, their site was constantly overloaded, just crashing from people mistakenly typing youtube.com when they meant YouTube.
So what happened?
They had to change their own company website to youtubeonline.com just to survive the flood of mistaken traffic. It just shows how dominant the brand became almost overnight. So the story shifted dramatically in the fall of 2006. On October 9th, Google announced it was acquiring YouTube for $1.65 billion in Google stock.
A massive number at the time.
Huge. And that deal was finalized a month later. Today, that valuation is equivalent to about $2.39 billion.
And this wasn't just a big payday for the founders. This was Google, a company with essentially bottomless resources betting on the future of online video. And they did this despite all the unresolved legal issues.
That acquisition really solidified YouTube's identity. It's when we got that iconic defining slogan, broadcast yourself.
And the move was just crucial, because as we were just saying, the platform was growing so fast it was unsustainable.
Completely. Google was probably the only company in the world that could afford the infrastructural needs. There's an astonishing metric that illustrates this from the Daily Telegraph.
Go on.
In 2007, just 1 year after the acquisition, YouTube alone was consuming as much bandwidth as the entire global internet did in the year 2000.
Wow. Let's just pause on that. In 2000, most of us were on painful dial-up.
Right.
And YouTube's growth eclipsed that entire global capacity in just 7 years.
Oh.
It went from a novelty to a massive logistical problem almost overnight.
And the content creation rates they exploded during this period. By 2011, users were watching over 3 billion videos a day, and 48 hours of new video were being uploaded every single minute.
And that was still accelerating. Just 2 years later, 2013, the upload rate had more than doubled to 100 hours of video every minute.
It just illustrates how deeply entrenched the platform had become. For media, for self-expression, for professional content, all of it.
But during this period of hypergrowth, an interesting economic dynamic started to emerge. You call it the viewership paradox.
Right. So the data from around 2011 revealed this really sharp contrast between the promise of an infinite library and the reality of how people actually consume media.
Explain that paradox for us.
Well, the initial theory of the internet was this long tail model. The idea that a huge library of niche content would generate as much or maybe even more revenue than the traditional blockbuster head of the curve.
And YouTube's data showed.
The opposite. Despite billions of videos being available, consumption was highly concentrated. Only 30% of all the videos on the site accounted for 99% of all the total views.
So the vast majority of that long-tail content, while it was there, was essentially invisible. It was getting almost no engagement.
Exactly. It shows that even with this democratic promise, human consumption habits still gravitate overwhelmingly toward a few concentrated hits.
The promise of broadcast yourself was unlimited access to upload, but it wasn't a guarantee of an audience.
Precisely. And in the meantime, Google's deep pockets were absolutely essential for fighting the huge legal challenges that came with this scale.
And the biggest of these was the lawsuit from Viacom International. They owned MTV, Nickelodeon, Comedy Central.
This was a battle for the soul of the internet. Viacom filed a billion-dollar lawsuit. They were alleging that YouTube, and by extension Google, was profiting directly from material they didn't have the rights to. They were saying Google was liable for the infringement of its users.
This was the moment of truth. Because if Viacom had won, it would have set a precedent. It would have required platforms to proactively screen every single upload for copyrighted material.
Which was technologically impossible at the time. It would have killed the entire model.
So what was the result?
Well, the litigation went on for years, but in 2012, YouTube won. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit ruled that YouTube was not directly liable for the alleged copyright infringement of its users.
That ruling was monumental.
It was. It protected the platform, and really, it allowed the entire model of user-generated content that underpins all of modern social media to thrive. If that lawsuit had gone the other way, the digital world we know today would look radically different.
So this next era, starting around 2014, it marks a big transition. YouTube goes from being this free, ad-supported library to a much more mature media ecosystem.
Right. The focus shifts to diversification, professional creators, and it starts with a big leadership change in February 2014. Susan Wojcicki, a longtime Google executive, was appointed CEO.
And she held that role for 9 years.
She did, and under her leadership, the platform really invested in its physical presence to match its digital scale. In 2016, they acquired a massive office park in San Bruno, California, to expand their headquarters.
And that expansion, tragically, brought the company's corporate environment into conflict with real-world violence.
Yeah.
In April of 2018, a shocking shooting occurred at that San Bruno headquarters.
That day. It remains a profound trauma for the employees and for the community. The sources confirm that 4 people were wounded in the attack, and the event resulted in the death of the shooter.
It was a terrible event.
It just underscored the vulnerability that even a massive, seemingly untouchable tech corporation faces when dealing with the unpredictable realities of the physical world.
A horrible reminder of the human scale of the company and the responsibility it held. But even as they were grappling with that externally, the pressure to evolve the business model beyond just simple ads was intense.
It was, and the diversification was aggressive, especially into subscriptions. They experimented a lot.
It started with a trial of subscription channels in 2013.
Which then quickly morphed into Music Key in 2014, mostly for ad-free music. Then came YouTube Red in 2015, which introduced original content along with the ad-free viewing.
And that finally evolved into what we have now, YouTube Premium.
Right. It bundles the ad-free streaming, access to their original shows, and the really crucial feature of offline playback on mobile devices. It created a reliable, non-advertising revenue stream.
They also built out tools for creators to earn money directly from their audience.
Yes, in 2017, they launched Super Chat. This allowed viewers to donate anywhere from $1 to $500 to highlight their comment during a live stream.
And that was a critical step in building the creator economy. It gave viewers a direct way to support channels they loved, completely bypassing traditional ads or sponsorships.
It was, but they didn't just target individual creators, they took aim at traditional TV. In 2017, they launched YouTube TV.
This is what's known as an MVPD-style service, right? A multi-channel video programming distributor.
Correct. For about $65 a month, it started by offering live streams of the 5 major broadcast networks and around 60 cable channels. It was a direct digital competitor to cable and satellite.
And that convergence has just continued, especially with big sports rights, like being able to buy NFL Sunday Ticket on its own since September 2022.
And it got even tighter in 2022 with the launch of primetime channels. This is basically a channel store inside the YouTube app, letting you subscribe to other services like Paramount Plus or Max.
That's a huge shift. It turns YouTube from just a content platform into an aggregator and a distributor of other people's subscription content.
It does. It positions them directly against companies like Roku and Amazon channels, and they're using their massive audience scale as the ultimate advantage.
Now, with all this expansion came more scrutiny, especially around minors. This led to YouTube Kids in 2015.
Right, a separate, curated app with a simpler UI and parental controls, but even that didn't protect them from major regulatory action.
The Copy-Pay fine, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act.
A massive and defining moment. After a complaint in 2018, the FTC fined YouTube $170 million in 2019 for illegally collecting personal information, things like cookies for minors under 13.
$170 million is a huge fine, but what was the actual impact on the creators making the content?
The fallout was immense. It forced these really strict new rules. Any video designated made for kids, either by the creator or by an AI review, had to comply.
Which meant?
It meant key engagement and monetization features were disabled, no comments, no info cards, no notification bells, and critically, no personalized advertising.
So it just slashed the revenue potential for countless family and educational channels.
Drastically. It rolled out in January 2020 and had a huge impact.
Another major change came in November 2021 when they removed the public display of the dislike count. And this sparked a furious debate.
It did. YouTube's defense was that their internal research showed the dislike button was being weaponized, specifically through coordinated efforts called dislike brigading to harass and bully smaller creators.
So they claimed they were protecting vulnerable users.
Yeah.
Creators could still see their own dislike numbers privately.
Right. But what's fascinating is the rare, very forceful criticism this drew from one of the platform's own founders. Jawed Karim publicly slammed the move. He called it a stupid idea.
Oh, what's his argument?
He claimed the bullying reason was just a smokescreen. His deeper point was that removing the public count broke the principle of the wisdom of the crowds, the ability of users to quickly and transparently identify bad content.
So he felt it was a quality control mechanism.
Exactly. He argued that interfering with that would ultimately degrade the quality and the trust in the entire platform.
And while they were dealing with all this, externally, a massive competitor emerged, TikTok.
Which prompted YouTube to enter the short-form video battle with YouTube Shorts.
Right. Launched in beta in September 2020. Started at 15 seconds, then a minute.
And now, as of October 2024, clips can be up to 3 minutes long. It was an urgent, strategic move to keep audience attention from shifting entirely to this new format.
But they weren't always successful with these copycat features. They tried to clone the ephemeral story concept from Instagram and Snapchat.
With YouTube Stories, yes. But it never really resonated with the core YouTube audience. The platform's identity is built on permanence, not on things disappearing. It was eventually shut down in June 2023. It just shows that copying a feature doesn't guarantee it'll work in a different ecosystem.
The platform entered its current phase of leadership in February 2023, with Neil Mohan taking over from Susan Wojcicki as CEO. And under Mohan, the focus has really sharpened, not just on growing revenue, but aggressively protecting the existing ad revenue stream.
Which brings us to the most user-confrontational policy of this current era, the war on ad blockers.
Right. Starting in late 2023, they began to actively crack down.
Their position is very clear. Using ad blockers violates their terms of service. They argue if you block ads, you're effectively stealing value from the platform and its creators.
And this wasn't just a policy statement. It was backed by some very technical changes that pose a real existential threat to ad blocking software.
It was a two-pronged technical assault. First, Google Chrome started replacing the old extension standard, Manifest v2, with a new one, Manifest v3, in June 2024.
Why is that significant for ad blockers?
Because Manifest v3 fundamentally limits what extensions can do, especially when it comes to modifying network requests. Ad blockers traditionally work by intercepting a request for an ad file and just blocking it.
And v3 makes that harder.
Much harder. It forces blockers into a more limited, less efficient mode of operation. It really hobbles them.
And the second, even more potent strategy came in July 2024. Server-side ad injection. Explain how this works.
Historically, when you requested a YouTube video, the content and the ad slots were delivered as separate pieces to your browser. Your ad blocker could see the ad component and refuse to load it.
But with server-side ad injection.
That whole model changes. The ad is inserted and fused directly into the video stream before it even leaves YouTube's server.
So the ad blocker doesn't see a separate ad file to delete. It just sees one consolidated video file.
Exactly. From your device's perspective, it's just one continuous stream of data. This makes traditional client-side blocking almost useless. You'd have to block the entire video to block the ad, which, defeats the purpose.
It's a constant cat and mouse game.
It is, and a very difficult one for the ad blocker developers.
Okay, shifting gears to content integrity. YouTube is also trying to get a handle on sensationalism. They announced new guidelines in December 2024 to curb clickbait.
These guidelines specifically target videos with misleading titles, thumbnails, or descriptions that are designed purely to deceive viewers for clicks.
And the penalties are severe.
They are. Anything from just removing the video to full channel suspension. What's interesting is they announced the rollout would start in India before going global, probably testing the enforcement in a high-volume market first.
And then on the political tightrope, we saw a really controversial reversal on misinformation policies. In September 2025, Alphabet announced they would reinstate creators who had been banned for spreading misinformation about COVID-19 and the 2020 U.S. election.
This just instantly threw that whole debate back into the spotlight. The company framed the move as a commitment to free expression and public discourse.
But critics immediately challenged that.
They did. They argued that rather than truly prioritizing free expression, it was a thinly veiled attempt to prioritize engagement and views, especially leading into an election cycle. That it signaled a retreat from their responsibility to maintain accurate information.
Suggesting that the economic drivers might be outweighing the moral commitments they'd made before.
That was the argument, yes.
And adding yet another layer of control, in July 2025, YouTube announced a trial of new age assurance policies in the U.S.
This is their latest attempt to protect minors and comply with regulations like COPATAR.
So how does this assurance work if a user has already entered a birth date?
It uses machine learning to try and detect the actual age of the user, regardless of what their account says. If the system flags a user as potentially being a minor, their access to restricted content is limited, and critically, personalized advertising is disabled.
And how do you get around that if you need full access?
The methods are pretty invasive. You have to go through a rigorous age verification process. That means providing a scanned government ID, entering payment info tied to an adult account, or, increasingly, uploading a selfie that an AI analyzes to estimate your age.
Which raises some pretty significant privacy concerns.
It does. You're forced to hand over sensitive personal information just so the platform can deliver targeted ads and unrestricted content.
And all of this complex management, from copyright to misinformation, it all relies heavily on their back-end systems. Which brings us to the backbone of their copyright enforcement. Content ID.
Content ID, launched way back in 2007, is a highly sophisticated proprietary digital fingerprinting system.
How does it work?
Content owners upload their material, audio, and video into a massive database that creates unique digital fingerprints of their work. Then, when any new video is uploaded to YouTube, Content ID automatically scans it against that database for matches.
And if a match is found, what can the copyright owner do?
They have three main policy choices. They can block the video globally so it just disappears. They can track the video statistics, just gathering data. Or, and this is the most common choice, they can monetize the video by putting ads on it and claiming the revenue.
But if the rights holder can claim the revenue instantly, doesn't that bias the system against a creator who might be relying on fair use, like for commentary or parody?
That's the core tension. The burden of proof and the time pressure often fall on the creator. Originally, disputed videos were just demonetized, but since 2016, a change was made where the video stays monetized, but the revenue is held in escrow until the dispute is resolved.
So the winner of the dispute gets the money.
Right. But the fundamental problem remains the automation.
Because it's not a human making a nuanced judgment.
Exactly. Because the system is automated, it frequently flags content that should qualify as fair use, leading to countless disputes. A prime example was Nintendo, which for years aggressively enforced its copyright on Let's Play videos, claiming ad revenue from people who were essentially promoting their games.
They eventually ended that program.
They did in 2019. But that inherent tension between automation, complex copyright law, and the right to commentary, it continues to challenge the entire system. You know, the positive global influence of YouTube is undeniable. When the platform won a George Foster Peabody Award back in 2008, it was described as a speaker's corner for the 21st century.
And that's a great description. That platform provided revolutionary social leverage. It influenced political processes with things like the CNN YouTube presidential debates, and it was instrumental during major geopolitical events, especially the Arab Spring.
It was the tool used to tell the world about the unrest, to organize dissent.
And beyond politics, its role in education is just transformative. Look at Khan Academy, which Forbes once called the largest school in the world, built entirely on video tutoring.
And financially, its importance to Alphabet is enormous. It generated $31.7 billion in advertising revenue in 2023 alone. Yet, with that immense global reach, the platform is constantly struggling with control, both from external governments trying to suppress information and from its own internal policies seeking compliance.
Which brings us to censorship. And it really happens on two distinct levels: state-sponsored censorship and platform-enforced censorship.
Let's start with the states. YouTube has faced outright bans or restrictions from dozens of countries. The reasons are usually about limiting political unrest, preventing criticism of rulers or governments, or suppressing content deemed insulting to a national identity or religion.
And we have some very striking examples of long-term blocking. Thailand blocked access in 2007 over videos that were deemed insulting to the Thai king.
A clear case of protecting the monarchy. Then there's Turkey, which has blocked access repeatedly. Between 2008 and 2010, it was over content considered insulting to Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the founder of the republic.
And then again in 2014.
Right, after high-level intelligence leaks were uploaded that were politically damaging to the government.
And the most protracted history of bans comes from Pakistan. They had multiple long-term blocks between 2008 and 2016.
And those were over material deemed offensive to the Islamic faith. Things like the Danish cartoons of Muhammad and clips from the film Innocence of Muslims.
It's also important to note how fragile the internet infrastructure was during these early state actions.
Oh, absolutely. One of Pakistan's attempts to block YouTube in 2008 was so poorly executed that they inadvertently caused a near-global blackout of the site for 2 hours.
Wow.
Attempting to suppress it locally had global consequences.
So now let's move to platform-enforced control. The company itself makes global content decisions, often to comply with major foreign policy. A huge example was after the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022.
That was an unprecedented move. They removed all Russian state-funded media channels, specifically naming RT and Sputnik, and they did it globally. It was direct, global censorship of state propaganda based on geopolitics.
And this triggered a dramatic response from Moscow.
It did. In late 2024, a Russian court issued a massive, purely symbolic fine against Google for restricting its state media.
Was then?
The fine was stated as 2 undecillion rubles. It's critical to understand the scale here. An undecillion is 10 to the 36th power. 2 undecillion rubles it's more money than has ever existed in the global economy. It's an astronomically large, meaningless figure.
So it was just propaganda.
Purely. The fine was universally labeled as symbolic, a transparent attempt at political posturing. A Kremlin spokesperson issued a warning to Google not to interfere. It was a projection of power that had no financial reality.
But perhaps the most difficult situation, where global politics leads directly to the erasure of historical records, involves the removal of videos documenting human rights violations.
That's right. In early October 2025, YouTube deleted the accounts and over 700 videos belonging to 3 prominent Palestinian human rights groups: Al-Haq, Al-Mazan, and PCHR.
And this was done to comply with U.S. government sanctions.
Yes.
What exactly was in those videos that was removed?
They contained critical documentation of alleged human rights violations. This included detailed evidence from an investigation into the killing of the journalist Shireen Abu Akleh, and also testimonies detailing the torture of Palestinian detainees.
So the removal of this content, even if legally mandated by sanctions, it demonstrates this immense political and ethical tightrope the platform is walking.
It does, and it often results in the permanent erasure of documented history based on the geopolitical alignment and compliance with one specific government's foreign policy.
So looking back over these 2 decades, it's just a profound transformation. YouTube started with this radical democratic promise of broadcast yourself.
Yeah.
It provided an open platform that really did influence global democracy, education, political organizing.
But that open accessibility has been in constant tension with the need for centralized corporate control. Control that's driven by advertisers demanding brand safety, governments demanding censorship, and regulators demanding compliance, like we saw with that massive Kapuka fine.
The platform's growth required it to exert control over the very users that it had empowered in the first place.
Exactly. And as the platform expands from simple user-generated clips into a more traditional media distributor with things like primetime channels and its own movies and TV, that centralized control model only solidifies.
And on top of that, it's increasingly relying on AI for critical functions,
Yep.
like automated translation and the new age verification policies, which raises fundamental questions about who's ultimately making these moderation decisions.
It does. The core issue is this. What are the trade-offs that society accepts when an essential utility, which YouTube has become, it's the primary source of video information for billions of people, operates with the same centralized moderation and profit-driven policies as any other private corporation?
That tension between being an essential public utility and being a private corporate entity.
That tension is what will define its next 2 decades.
Thank you for exploring this history and these enormous issues with us.
Thanks for listening.